Now moving on, SUV drivers in Oxford will face higher parking charges. Proposals tabled by the local Green Party or passed by the City Council. The motion argues that heavier cars like SUVs cause more damage to roads, are more likely to seriously injure or kill pedestrians and cause more illnesses due to pollution. However, the Alliance of British Drivers has condemned the plan as absolutely outrageous. Well, let's get the thoughts now of the legendary motoring journalist, Quentin Willson. Quentin, welcome to the show. Always a pleasure. We hear a lot about the war on motorists, this time targeting SUVs because of their weight, and the charges could be astronomical. This idea first started in Paris. Now it's coming to Oxford. Can you tell us a bit about how it would work?
OK, so the idea is that the charges will penalise people who drive heavier SUVs and I guess by implication electric cars, although Oxford Council haven't said exactly what they're going to do with EVs. But this is all based around this notion of SUVs being heavier than passenger cars, therefore wearing out the roads more. Now, this is an example of where stuff councillors and legislators read on Facebook suddenly becomes policy. And the Green Party really do need to check their facts on this, because the idea that an SUV or an EV is going to wear out the roads more than a 44-ton lorry or a digger or a petrol tanker or a bin lorry is nonsense. So you've got to make this factually accurate, and this whole weight argument that these heavy cars are wearing out our roads is nonsense. There was a study, I've got it here in front of me, from the University of Edinburgh in 2022 that said real-world tests found that overwhelmingly the wear is caused by large vehicles, buses, heavy good vehicles. Road wear from cars and motorcycles is so low that this is immaterial. Now, obviously, driving around a medieval city like Oxford in an SUV isn't the brightest thing in the world to do. But the idea that we should penalise the owners of these cars based on imperfect science that's been read on social media, I think is completely wrong.
And Quentin, it's also worthwhile pointing out that SUVs aren't the preserve of the rich and wealthy, the Chelsea tractors, as they were once called. They now make up the majority of vehicle sales in the UK, currently 60%. And if the trend continues, 3/4 of all vehicles sold in the UK by 2027 will be SUVs. And the worry, of course, Quentin, as we saw with ULEZ, the idea starts in one town and one city, and when politicians see, oh, that's a nice little money spinner, it'll go nationwide.
Absolutely. And we can't have legislation made around imperfect science. So you've got to look at the claim that are they slaughtering pedestrians? Where's the data for that? And OK, the emissions aren't great, but if you're talking about banning heavy cars and then you start banning electric cars in towns like Oxford, then their clean air policy just tumbles down, doesn't it? So what we're asking for is not to say, look, it's great to drive SUVs. People make their choices, and smaller cars are great in small towns, but let's not have parking restrictions based on stuff people have read on social media.
And also some of the numbers, when you look at Paris, Quentin, a 6-hour stay with an SUV in Paris now costs you 192 quid compared to 64 quid for a smaller vehicle. This was voted through by a tiny percentile of the electorate. No one even knew the vote was going ahead. And isn't that the danger, as you said, when zealotry meets reality, the loser is the poor old motorist?
Absolutely. And you know, Martin, that I'm very pro-electric cars. I'm very pro-clean air. But when I see this sort of thing filtering into legislation, I'm just asking for someone who knows what they're talking about. That's all, not nonsense and zealotry and real activism. Let's make these decisions based on empirical facts and science, be it SUVs or EVs.
Well, if we made those decisions based on common sense and facts, we might get somewhere. I suspect it will never catch on because of those precise reasons. Thanks for joining us, motoring journalist Quentin Willson. Always an absolute joy to have you on the show. And the thing, we talk about these issues all the time. It's not just one town, because if you're not careful, it'll be coming everywhere because it's easy money. The motorists are a cash cow that are being simply milked dry.